Welcome to episode 4 of Art History with Caroline Quintanar. A lot of interesting things to look at today. Some interesting news coming out of Twitter from this week that I'm going to share with you. Announcements coming out of the Medieval magazine. And we're going to venture to Winchester here in England, where I visited over the weekend. And I'll share with you the medieval locations in the area along with some live stream videos that I took. So let's take a look and see what's happening in the news. Now, as a former educator myself, I am someone who really enjoys leveraging technological advances and the ability to use social networks for education. So this morning I stumbled upon an account that I thought was really interesting, and it comes out of the College of the Holy Cross in the United States, and it's a Twitter account for a class that's starting this semester, which is the Republican history, And what's really cool is this class will be using this Twitter handle to expand their discussion outside the classroom with history enthusiasts, experts, scholars around the world. All the different students will get to participate as well and kind of foster this exchange of knowledge kind of across the world. So I recommend taking a look at their Twitter feed, following them, getting in touch. It's a good way to learn about Roman Republican history as well if you're not an expert. And if you are, you can get in touch with these students and share a little bit more about your experience with them as well. So apart from these videos that I'm doing weekly, I'm actually going to start participating in doing book reviews for the Medieval magazine and Medievalists.net. So we have the privilege to work with a lot of fantastic publishers around the world. We get to read great books and then share our insights and opinions on them. We do post book reviews on the website, and we also share more extensive book reviews in the magazine as well. But we really want to kind of branch out and capitalize on the video potential of getting to share with you just 2 to 3 minutes of our experience reading a particular book. I'm currently reading right now this book. Now, this is my first experience with English 14th century literature. So I'm kind of taking my time here because this is new to me and I'm really enjoying it. So in our September issue, you'll have my written review as well, sharing with you kind of what I enjoyed, what was the surprises, what the book entails apart from the story itself. And then we'll have the video as well, which I'll be able to show you, kind of highlight my favorite parts as well. And we get to feature the author and the publishers and thank them for allowing us to review these books. So that'll be coming up in September, so stay tuned for that. So as an art historian and a mayor nerd and someone who tries to find humor and sarcasm in absolutely everything, I'm a big fan of memes, as you can imagine. Yesterday, on the 22nd of August, was Museum Meme Day. So you can look on Twitter at the hashtag MUSmeme, so for Museum Meme, and find some fantastic content. So if you're feeling down and you want to have a laugh, you can get some wonderfully curated humor for museums all across the world. There was a bit of competition, there was things that kind of came out of the woodwork, but I highly recommend having a look at it. Again, these types of initiatives and activities are great because you get to see kind of the more relaxed and humorous side of other institutions that are typically more serious, and then it also creates camaraderie among institutions worldwide. So have a look at that hashtag. You'll definitely have some laughs, and I hope you enjoy what you see. We're definitely looking forward to the Museum Meme Day next year to see what people come up with. So big stuff is happening at the Medieval magazine. As you can tell, as I announced in the last video, we're moving to a monthly publication Really excited about it. That means we're just going to chock it full of great content. We have a lot coming up for September, but September is really special. It's a special edition because we're celebrating 10 years. So 10 years ago, Sandra and Peter sat down and decided, you know what? We are going to find a way to make a place, a location for medieval history buffs, historians, researchers, people just interested in learning about medieval history and art history and architecture, and we're going to make that one place where everyone can come together. So we're celebrating 10 years of their idea, 10 years of the evolution from where it was in 2008 to where it is now, and the magazine is going to celebrate that. And we're also looking at topics of education in medieval times, different folklore and customs related to autumn, but we're going to look back on those 10 years and really see how far they've come. So, Sandra is my co-editor and really the mastermind behind the Medieval magazine, and she's going to share what it's been like over those 10 years. They sat down, had a conversation together and thought, we're going to do this, let's see what happens. And 10 years later, I think they've done a lot, and they're going to do even more great things as time goes on. So I'm really privileged, and I feel very grateful that I get to be a part of this and be a part of the next 10 years of their journey. So as I mentioned in the previous episodes, right now we're running a sale on our older issues for the Medieval magazine, special of $1.99. So there you can kind of go all the way back to some of our beginning issues and enjoy all of that content. You can get that on the medievalmagazine.com. We're running that right now. We have all of the older issues published in there as well. Same as the way that the Medieval magazine is normally delivered to you in a digital format, and you can enjoy some of that older content that we're still very proud of, but just at a cheaper price. So definitely check that out if you have a moment. And last, coming out here is one of my favorite things. I'm really excited about it because it allows me to have a little bit of creative liberty, probably somewhere I shouldn't, but I'm really excited anyway. So we have some different merchandise available through Medieval magazine and Medievalists. So we have tote bags, some different notebooks, and since school is starting again, so you might be going to high school, you might be starting uni, you might be doing your PhD, that doesn't mean that you are not entitled to have some medieval sass within your repertoire of accessories. So we're actually going to be working on some new tote bags with some medieval creatures and animals. We'll be working on hopefully some pencil cases. We're going to see how those turn out as well. Different accessories and some notebooks. So we're slowly posting this on the website. Have a look. Trying to make them at accessible prices as well so everyone can enjoy. And so in the next few weeks, you'll get to see a few different creations. Hopefully you enjoy them, that you can take with you on campus starting this fall. This week's travel destination is Winchester, England. I'll be sharing with you 3 different locations, medieval, that I visited over the weekend, sharing with you a bit of the history. Also, while I was there, I had the opportunity to do some live stream videos of the locations of the visit, and I'll share those links with you in the description location below following the video. So apart from our little tour today, you can actually see what I saw over the weekend and experience it for yourself. So let's go to our first stop. So Winchester is a treasure trove of history. It was inhabited by the Anglo-Saxons, then you had the Normans, and it's been an important pillar in English history throughout the years and even up until today. Our first location is Woolsey Castle, which also was a bishop's palace. So the original site was built around 970 by the Bishop Ethelwood of Winchester. Now, this was before the Norman conquest, and unfortunately, not a lot of those remains still exist. they were destroyed and replaced by the Norman construction itself. So it was about 1110 when the Norman bishop, William of Gifford, he decided to construct a new hall in the southwest. And then his successor, Henry of Blois, again, I'm not very good at the pronunciation of this, so please bear with me. He was the brother of King Stephen. He really did some massive renovations on the location itself and did a construction of a second hall between 1135 and 1138. So I had the opportunity to visit this weekend, and I did some live stream videos. So you'll have the link here at the bottom, where I'll show you right here, and then I have the link as well in the description so you can kind of see what it was like first person. Now, they later built another palace for the bishop, which is in the Baroque style, and that's just off to the side of this particular location, and the current bishop of Winchester actually still lives there. So you can kind of see how the progression of history has made it up until today. So the castle itself, again, created by Henry, the castle part was constructed in about 1141, and they were linking these two Norman halls with a curtain wall, which unfortunately kind of just wipes the Anglo-Saxon palace right off the map. That's kind of a Norman thing to do, and you'll see that all around England. Just if it's in the way, why don't we just obliterate it? But that's neither here nor there right now. So the building itself now is in ruins. The ruins are beautiful, but again, it's in ruins. So you can see the outline of what the building would have looked like. You can see what was the treasury, which was the palace kitchen, towers. You can actually see some examples of medieval plumbing, which is always good to kind of learn about because we tend to forget that everyone was human back then as well and had necessities that needed to be taken care of. And there were a lot of important things that happened at this location as well. There was even the wedding breakfast between Queen Mary and Philip II of Spain, which happened in the mid-16th century. So this location was really important for a considerably long amount of time. It stood intact for about 500 years before it fell into ruin. So it's maintained now by the English Heritage, so I have to thank them for taking care of it and making sure that it's preserved in its current state, and that's how it stays. And it's just located kind of right outside the center of Winchester. And I say right outside the center of Winchester, I mean a 10-minute walk from the city center. So again, have a look at the link below. You can see my live streaming from there. I'll show you different parts. I'll show you the palace kitchen. I'll show you the tower, and then I'll show you kind of the remaining little parts of the Anglo-Saxon location that is buried there. There's a few stones where they think it might still be, and then some of the original kind of first Norman parts before Henry's construction. So next stop is Winchester Cathedral. This is less than a 10-minute walk from the castle. Winchester is very compact. It's really easy to get around, so you can see all of these things in a day trip. It makes it actually really accessible to everything. Now, the cathedral itself and kind of its particular location is very old. The original cathedral was founded in 642 on a site that was just a bit north of where the modern cathedral is sitting right now, and it was originally called Old Minster. It was a part of a monastic it became part of a monastic settlement, in 971. So even before the Normans came, hundreds of years before, this particular location was already considered to be sacred. So what happens next? Normans come. What do the Normans do? Let's build a cathedral. It's either a cathedral or a castle. You can get a cathedral and a castle and maybe an abbey. They were busy. They were building, and Winchester was on their list of places to erect something. So they started the construction of this in about 1079. That's when kind of the new construction started. Now, I have to say, as someone who's a big buff about architectural history, it's an architectural historian's dream. You can see the original Norman parts, you can see then the Gothic additions, you can go down into the crypt, there's 12th and 13th century wall paintings. It's absolutely amazing. You have a retro choir, behind the high altar. That's from the early English Gothic style, and it's just beautifully preserved. So someone who's really into architectural history, Winchester is just, it's a dreamland. It's lovely. So the building then was consecrated in 1093. So it took a little bit of time to construct. Obviously, cathedrals aren't something you erect overnight. So the end of the 11th century is when it was consecrated. Now, there's a lot going on. You do have the 11th century parts that are still standing. They're very obvious to see. So you have the crypt, which you can go down in, the transepts, and then you have kind of the basic structure of the nave. That's what's still there. And then you have obviously the additions that came after. Now the original tower, the crossing tower, that collapsed in 1107, unfortunately, but you know, these things happen, and there was a replacement, which is the one that still stands today. Something that's absolutely beautiful to see is the retro choir, and this one up in 1189. So here you have a picture of the retro choir. And this was kind of the early English Gothic style. Later, there was rebuilding in the area in the 14th century, and some different additions as well. Luckily, Winchester Cathedral was not a victim to Henry VIII's dissolution of the building itself. Obviously, he was getting rid of the monasteries, getting rid of all of the different orders and things because it didn't fit with his personal agenda, but the building itself survived, which we were in Hales Abbey in the last episode, which unfortunately didn't survive because that's just what happened. Now, what's really cool in the cathedral, apart from obviously its architectural grandeur, is all the different people, all the different figures who are buried there. There's some mortuary chests that come from the original Old Minster, and they have kind of the ancient kings of Wessex there. So I have two images here. You can see inside these mortuary chests are apparently the bones of these famous kings and queens. We have Ethelwulf, Emma of Normandy, William II. So they're supposedly all in these chests. I'd like to hope that they actually are in there because that would be very interesting. And a more modern famous person who's buried in Winchester Cathedral is Jane Austen. So her actual grave is buried, and she's in the floor. There's not a lot of pomp and circumstance around her particular tomb. Now it says Jane Austen, daughter of, as you can see here in the image. But luckily there's also this very fancy gold plaque that they've put up next to it as well, so you can find that. So you can enjoy the medieval part, but you can also enjoy the kind of more modern literary part with just paying homage to Jane and all of her fantastic literary contributions. Now, something else that's happening there is you have a wonderful exhibition looking at a medieval manuscript that they have there in the Winchester Cathedral. Now, unfortunately, it's not open on Sundays. So Sundays you can go into the cathedral for free without having to pay admission, but that particular exhibition was closed. So if you'd like to see that, they have the manuscript on display plus a very informative exhibition kind of around it. I recommend going Monday through Saturday so that you can see that. So our last stop is Winchester Castle. Now, fortunately, the castle itself is no longer standing. It's only the Great Hall that remains, but it's still very impressive. And I got the chance to visit that this weekend as well. Now, this was constructed in 1067 as well as some of the other Norman buildings in the location. And the site was chosen particularly by William the Conqueror himself to be one of the first Norman castles in England. It was actually in a locations that the Romans had constructed a considerably large earth rampart. And so that to him was a location that he really wanted to capitalize on. So, again, built in 1067, kind of in this flurry of castles and cathedrals that the Normans were stirring up across the country. And it sat as the seat for the Norman kings for about 100 years. It is spectacular when you walk in. So if you've read any medieval literature talking about great halls and castles and things, you know exactly what they're describing when you step inside. It has grandeur, you have these stunning stained glass windows, beautiful painting on the walls, and it is a very open space, but regal space. You get that feeling when you walk in, you know, even though we're almost about 1,000 years out from its construction. So what's cool about this is location is also mentioned in the Doomsday Book, so we can go back and have some textual evidence apart from the building itself of knowing more or less when it was built. So the Great Hall, where it's still standing, that was built between 1222 and 1235 by Henry III. So he was born in the castle itself and then added that Great Hall. Again, windows are beautiful, so you have a look here at these stained glass windows. You can see what I'm talking about. Luckily, it was a beautiful sunny day, so you had the sun shining through, which made them even more magical. And another fun tidbit of history that's there is this imitation Arthurian round table. It's this massive table that they have hanging on the wall, kind of commemorating, you know, the Arthurian legend of having the round table. Now, the history behind this particular version, well, the original one was created in the 13th century, but then it was repainted under Henry VIII. Again, just touching everything because he can, but repainted and kind of just showing the different knights and King Arthur himself. It's really, really big, so this image here doesn't do justice to its actual size, but it is a very cool piece of history to think that even what we consider to be very old history, they were still commemorating history that was hundreds of years back for them as well. So this is just about, I'd say, 10 minutes walking from the high street in Winchester, about maybe 15-minute walk from the cathedral itself, but definitely worth visiting. You also have on the side the medieval garden, which was created and taken care of by Queen Eleanor. It's stunning, beautiful, and it's just a really peaceful, tranquil place to kind of take a break during your day trip there. So I recommend stepping inside and having a moment there in the medieval garden and just kind of think of all the people over the last 1,000 years who came and sat in that garden as well. So thank you for joining me for the 4th episode. I hope you enjoyed the tour of Winchester. There's a lot of other things in the Winchester area apart from the city itself, and I haven't had time to explore them just yet, but I hopefully will be able to in the future. In the description below, you'll see links for visiting these different locations and times. Very easy to get there. It's a very accessible city. I also put links to the streaming Periscope videos that I made while I was there this weekend. So you get to see the interior of the cathedral. So I kind of try to walk you through, you know, you're seeing it through a first-person experience of what I was seeing. Now, the video can't always express the magnitude of the building itself, but for those who are kind of not in the area, it's a good way to experience it. So look forward to seeing you on the next episode, and thank you again for joining.